Okay, welcome to part 3 of this Human Design 2027 What a Breakdown, where we will be getting into passenger consciousness. So, we alluded to this a little bit earlier, but more in detail. Energetically, passenger consciousness is about cultivating a radical observational awareness. It is not a passive state, but an active, energetic stance. It's the ability to witness these profound internal and external shifts, the literal breakdown of a 400-year-old world and the emergence of a new mutative frequency, without becoming overly identified with the chaos or the fear that naturally arises in the collective mind. This is an invitation to shed old skins and embrace a more alive, present, and uniquely expressed way of being. The energy shifts related to 2027 are about a fundamental retuning of the human experience, moving away from externally defined collective structures and towards inwardly referenced individual authenticity. By adopting this state, you acknowledge a larger transformation underway while anchoring your own blueprint to act as the anchor. So when we think of passenger, we can think of mind and witness. When we think of the vehicle, we can think of the body that navigates by strategy and authority. To truly move into the back seat, you have to understand the specific language of your own specific vehicle. Your authority is not a thought, it is a physical, biological event. So for each different authority part, there's different ways to distinguish your body's intelligence from your mind stories. If you have emotional authority, you must ride the wave. There is no truth in the now for you. Name your wave phase, rise, peak, trough, or the plateau of clarity. You're designed to avoid making decisions at the peaks of hope or the troughs of pain. For sacral authority, you must capture the first non-verbal or before the mind starts building a narrative. This is the body's mechanical response to life. If you wait for the reason, you've already left your authority. If you're splenic authority, this is a spontaneous, quiet intuition. It's a one-time whisper that focuses on health and survival in the immediate moment. If you ask for a second ping or try to think it over, the splenic hit is gone. For those with ego or will center authorities, this is about sensing whether you actually have the sustainable, consistent will to do a thing. It is the heart's authority. Don't commit where the engine isn't running. And then those who are self or identity authority, this is the G center speaking. You must hear yourself, speak to know your truth. Sense when your direction feels like true north and the words coming out of your mouth feels like home. And those that are environmental, mental, or lunar, you may have no internal definition, and your authority is found through your environment. You must sample different places and people over time. If you're a reflector, you have to wait a full lunar cycle to see if it remains consistent once the noise of others fades. Shifting into passenger consciousness requires a total surrender of the mind as driver. For centuries, we have been conditioned to let the mind, driven by its conditioning, its fear, and its survival-based logic, control the direction of our lives. We've been taught to figure it out and then act. In the 2027 frequency, that strategy fails. Surrender means the passenger, the conscious mind, is still fully present and aware, but its role has changed. It is there to witness experiences, to learn from the scenery, and to offer unique perspectives to others. It is not there to forcefully steer the vehicle. It is about being present to life as it unfolds, allowing the body's inherent wisdom to handle the steering wheel while the mind simply watches out the window. This shift to passenger consciousness is the mechanism through which your inner truth is accessed. It bypasses the often conflicting directives of the external world or the pressures of the conditioned mind. As the reliance on external structures, the cross of planning, diminishes, your capacity to navigate life depending on your own internal guidance system becomes the only path to well-being. This is the definition of survival in the now. Passenger consciousness fosters a deep connection to your personal power and your intuitive capabilities. You aren't reacting to global collapse, you are responding from your own sovereign frequency. You are no longer a victim of the weather, you are the one navigating through it with a functional map. To understand the depth of the 2027 mutation, we can look through the philosophical lens of density. This isn't about fixed stages in a hierarchy, but rather a description of the frequency of awareness we are moving toward. We are witnessing a transition from third density consciousness, which is primarily focused on duality, external structures, and the egoic identity of the mind, towards the fourth density consciousness. For the last several thousand years, human awareness has been centered in the anja. This is a frequency of duality, right versus wrong, us versus them, logic versus emotion. It is a dense way of processing reality because it relies on the mind to categorize and control everything it sees. The 2027 shift, however, represents the evolution of the solar plexus from a pure motor emotion center into a full awareness center, being the spirit. This is the hallmark of fourth density. It is a move toward a more holistic spiritual awareness rooted in love and connection, but realized through the individual. This transition is not a team event. It happens through individual realization. As the solar plexus mutates, our nervous systems are being rewired to perceive a higher frequency of unity and spirit without losing our individual sovereignty. We are currently moving away from the mental dualism that fueled the cross of planning and into a spirit-based resonance that defines the sleeping phoenix. We can think of density as a comparative lens. It parallels the anja to the solar plexus. We are moving from the density of mental control to the fluidity of spiritual awareness. It is vital to understand that the 2027 shift is not an abstract event waiting to happen in the future. It is the evolving energetic environment that we are navigating right now. This is the background frequency that explains why the old strategies for success, security, and relationships are suddenly losing their potency. When we look at the collective and personal challenges surfacing today, we are seeing the symptoms of an world losing its outer authority stabilizers. This shift provides the ultimate validation for the core teaching of human design. The transition from the cross of planning to the sleeping phoenix is quite literally the transition from deciding with the mind to navigating with strategy and authority. The primary takeaway of the 2027 shift is all about less outer authority, more inner authority. It's the fundamental and foundational mission of this work. We aren't just learning a new personality system, we are navigating a survival manual for a new era. We are reframing the shift as the working context for our lives. The message is consistent. As the world becomes less predictable, you become more sovereign. That's the task, at least. The 2027 shift is best understood by looking at deconditioning in its broadest possible light. The breakdown of the 400-year-old societal norms and the thinning of the tribal bargain and the decay of institutionalized safety nets is a macro-scale mirror of the individual deconditioning process. It is the world itself undergoing a transition away from the not-self structures of the past. So the mechanics of the transition, we're seeing inner versus outer collapse, where deconditioning is specifically the process of ceasing to run borrowed strategies in one's open centers. Because the outer landscape is also changing, it is easy to confuse the outer collapse of the world with an inner failure. While global structures are wobbling, inner authority remains the only fixed point of navigation. For those who carry the primary gates of this transition, gates 37, 49, 16, as well as those moving toward 55, 59, 34, and 20, the collective pressure around these themes is shifting. There is often an inexplicable release from old tribal duties or a surging intense need for personal power. This is the result of the neutrino stream withdrawing its support from old bargains and rerouting it toward individual empowerment. Oh, the breakdown is a necessary transformation leading to an individualized era of the sleeping phoenix. The new frequency only supports what is authentic and differentiated. By becoming unique, an individual aligns with the only energy the new era is designed to power. We're moving from the perceived safety of the collective to the actual empowerment of the self. It is a common mistake to view the 2027 shift as a single cataclysmic event. In mechanical reality, it is a fundamental dismantling, a gradual breakdown of the old collective structures, agreements, and the conditions that have defined the crossive planning era since 1615. We are not watching a sudden explosion, but rather the systemic unraveling of our reliance on established outer authorities and societal safety nets. Because the neutrino stream is shifting, its focus, the glue that held our institutions together, is simply drying up. This period of time is defined by the decay of reliance. Systems that once felt like permanent fixtures, things like global supply chains, institutionalized education, and tribal social contracts are losing their grip. We're currently in the gap between eras. The old ways are no longer functional, but the new individualized frequency of the sleeping phoenix has not yet fully solidified into a new way of life. This creates a profound sense of instability when the background frequency stops powering the bargain, gate 3740. People feel like an existential lack of support, even if their physical circumstances haven't changed. We can think of this as the compost phase. The structures of the planning era must become porous and eventually fail to make room for the radical self-reliance required for the next 400-year cycle. As the global background frequency shifts, the very foundation of how we bond are being re-engineered. We're moving away from community built on tribal duty and toward community built on individual resonance. This is not just a social trend, it is the result of the locks and keys of our global era changing their environment. So a few of the core things that are moving is we're moving from the family, gate 37, to the spirit, gate 55. For 400 years, the family was the sole model for the way. Relationships were based on the bargain, a trade of loyalty for security. As we move toward the sleeping phoenix, this gives way to the spirit. Connections will now be based on individual resonance and authentic emotional truth rather than obligation or societal structures. Ties that are not rooted in shared spirit will naturally release. Those that are will deepen through truth. And from the temple of aloneness, gate 40, to sexual intimacy, gate 59. In the planning era, our connection to the sacred and how we did the work was often a solitary and will-driven effort. The temple was the work we did alone to provide for the tribe. In the new era, the temple is found in intimacy. This reframes sacredness as an honest, energetic exchange, whether sexual or not. Our connection to Source is found through deep, authentic, and potentially more transient connections that facilitate mutation. This is the community-facing articulation of the Phoenix constructs. We are seeing family as obligation expire. As this happens, it is essential to allow for the release of old structures without creating villains. Some ties will break because the frequency no longer supports them, but we must hold space for the grief of these endings while making room for new, fluid forms of intimacy based on honest, energetic resonance. In 2027, we enter a new 400-year cycle governed by the cross of Sleeping Phoenix. This is not a subtle shift, it is a total retuning of the background frequency of human life. The program that once subsidized collective harmony and tribal security is being replaced by a frequency that prioritizes individuality, self-reliance, and survival in the now. For the first time in centuries, the collective consciousness will be driven by individual circuitry. This empowers mutation and the unique expression of the self. The dominance of tribal and collective circuitry is receding. We are moving away from the logical and abstract patterns that maintain the institutions of the planning era. The sacred moves from the institution to the individual. The focus is now on personal power, intuition, and presence. Authentic intimacy replaces long-term commitments driven by societal norms. In this era, the bargain is dead. Resonance is the only currency. That's why we see the rise of passenger consciousness, because the outer world will no longer provide a reliable safety net. The only way to navigate this new 400-year cycle is through inner authority. This is the era of the passenger, being radically aware and making decisions strictly from one's own internal guidance system. In the cross of planning, the unit of evolution was the tribe or the nation. In the cross of Sleeping Phoenix, the unit of evolution is the individual. The goal of this cycle is the unique expression of each human being. We're moving from the security of fitting in to the vitality of standing out. As the background frequency of the planning era fades, the very definition of human nature is being recalibrated. We're moving away from a world that values the collective's ability to focus on specialized details and into a world that values the raw individual life force. The daily pattern of existence is reorientating. We are no longer here to spend decades acquiring skills to serve a collective machine. We are here to master presence and action in the now. The emphasis of the Sleeping Phoenix is on individual survival, but this must not be confused with bleak isolation. It is a transition toward radical self-reliance, when each individual is responsible for navigating life through their own inner resources and authentic guidance. It creates the foundation for new, resilient forms of connection. We move from a fragile collective dependency to a robust network of sovereign individuals. With this, we see the decline of outer authority, where traditional institutions, societal norms, and large-scale agreements are losing their charge. External validation is becoming a failing currency as these sources become less reliable and less relevant to the actual experience of living. Connecting with and trusting one's strategy and authority is no longer just a luxury. It is the paramount requirement for navigating life with satisfaction and success. What this means is that the program has flipped. There is now massive energetic support for individuals to live out their unique nature rather than conforming to homogenized expectations. This shift supports differentiation, the ultimate goal of the human design system, ensuring that unique expression of the individual becomes the primary value of the new era. The transition into Sleeping Phoenix is not a gentle slope, it is a mutative leap. One of the primary keys to finding the new plan is Gate 51, shock. This mechanical presence suggests the dismantling of the old era will involve unexpected events and rapid-fire changes designed to jolt consciousness out of its 400-year-old patterns and into a state of raw awareness. The Sleeping Phoenix is more than a name, it is a mechanical description of the process. It implies a cycle of destruction where the old collective structures must burn so that a more vibrant individualistic reality can arise from the ashes. This is a mutation of the human experience itself. Moving from focus to power, our perception of human nature is shifting. We are moving away from valuing the mental focus required to maintain detailed collective systems and moving toward the valuing of the raw life force and individual power. The daily pattern of life is no longer about the slow acquisition of skills to serve a future collective goal. It is now orientated toward immediate presence and action in the now. While the emphasis on individual survival can sound harsh, its mechanical purpose is resilience. By removing the fragile safety nets of the planning era, the frequency forces each individual to become responsible for their own navigation. This self-reliance doesn't lead to isolation. It allows for the emergence of new, authentic connections rooted in truth rather than dependency. We are being equipped to stand alone so that we can eventually stand together in a completely different way. As we enter the era of the sleeping phoenix, the reliance on external authorities is not just fading, it is becoming a source of intense friction. This shift establishes strategy and authority as the default decision-making route for the human species. In this new landscape, the mind is officially recategorized. It is the narrator, never the driver. The body is the only vehicle capable of navigating the shock of the transition. In the planning era, the body becomes the compass. In the planning era, the mind could often override the body and still succeed by following collective rules. In the Phoenix era, the body becomes a compass, where that override leads to immediate and severe dissonance. Our body-based intelligence, the sacred response, our emotional waves, the splenic instinct are the only tools tuned to the new frequency. Learning to honor these signals is no longer a self-development choice, it is an evolutionary requirement. To support this shift in consciousness, we must look at the body's internal and external mechanics through the primary health system, determination, and environment. Determination tunes how you digest both food and information. If your internal brain system is not fueled correctly, you cannot hear your authority clearly. When it comes to environment, this describes where your cognition stabilizes. In an unstable world, being in the correct environment allows your passenger to observe without the interference of survival anxiety. The protocol is to change one variable at a time. Consider experimenting with shifting meal times or finding ways that you can match your environmental tone. Because Gate 51 shock is an incoming key, we must expect rapid, jolting changes. This shock is designed to break our mental addiction to the old safety nets. When the unexpected occurs, the mind will panic and try to seize control. The only way through the death and rebirth of the phoenix is to remain anchored in the body's wisdom. The body knows how to survive the mutation. The mind only knows how to fear it. This is a good time to digest and take everything in, as we've concluded the practical application of passenger consciousness, where the mind observes and the body makes the decisions. As the external institutions of the world become less reliable, your physical authority is your only functional method for making correct choices. This brings us to the actual date of the 2027 shift. The actual data of the 2027 shift. Reading is hard today, friends. We have covered the high-level concepts, but human design is a mechanical system. To understand exactly what is changing, we have to look at the specific gates and lines. We need to examine the structural gates of our current era, like Gate 37 and Gate 40, and the specific gates of the sleeping phoenix that are replacing them. That level of specific mechanical analysis is extensive, and I have put together a complete series covering the exact circuitry changes, the line-by-line shifts, and the biological transition of the solar plexus. I am hosting that entire exclusive series on my Patreon if you want to study the literal mechanics of this transition without the dogma and wellness industry bypassing. Click the link in the description to subscribe. I focus on harm reduction and critical discourse, as well as prioritizing individual sovereignty over collective obligation. And if you want to look directly at your own chart to identify where you are holding on to societal conditioning so you can reclaim your physical consent, you can book a one-on-one embodied consulting session with me at esotericho.com. All the links are in the description below, and thank you for watching, and I will see you over on Patreon.